Throughout this video, I'll be showcasing 4 different projects that I chose to submit as my final 4 throughout this PDF. I'll be talking about processes, development, enjoyment, and reflection throughout each project. Unfortunately, due to the time constraints of the video, I won't be able to go as in depth as I would like to. But the first brief I chose was design marketing. Throughout this brief, we were told to create a promotional campaign for a 4-day work week. I began by researching my 4-day work week, looking at mood boards and creating them, seeing what was previously done and how I could take my own twist on things. I began by sketching out multiple different logos. I decided to create a range of logos, which I then took into Illustrator once I found my final sketch, which was the number 4, which had a dot at the end to represent the end of the 4-day work week, but was also open for interpretation, as it also looked like a stick man that was either relaxing on his days off that it was promoted throughout the brief of having an extra day off, while also it could be seen as working out, relaxing, of whatever people see it as. I then experimented with my logos in Illustrator, bringing them all in, experimenting with more abstract designs, colours, etc. But in the end, I chose the one that I did do as my final sketch. This was my final logo. I then looked at different colours, such as green, as it is shown to promote health and well-being, such as things that are seen on pharmaceutical logos. I also looked at colours such as red and orange, as they're seen as creative, passionate colours. In the end, I chose the colours green and blue. I chose the green, again, because it relates to the feeling of promoting well-being and health, and blue because throughout time it has been used in design and seen as a trustworthy colour. The typeface I chose throughout this was a rounded type, a sans serif typeface that I thought reflected the logo well. For the animation, it was supposed to preview in this PDF, but unfortunately the embedding didn't work. But the animation can be found on a YouTube link that I've left in the PDF. I struggled a lot with After Effects. It was my first time using it, but to create the animation I had to create all these different elements of the stickman throughout my process. Sorry about that. I then created an animated mock-up in Photoshop, showing my work in context in bus stations, so that I could see how it works in the real world. I then added it to another poster that wasn't a bus station, but just so that I could see more in context and to add more function to my work. I then created social media mock-ups, as I thought that the demographic for this brief would be quite young, primarily people that are using social media and also supposedly perhaps can't drive or are taking public transport in large cities. So I thought that social media mock-ups were the best thing I could have done. For my second project I chose to showcase today, I'm looking at my perfume campaign, where we were told to create a perfume campaign for a fashion brand that doesn't have perfume yet. I chose a Cold War, which is a streetwear brand created by Samuel Ross in London. So I started researching the brand, looking at its core values and roots, such as how it's inspired by the colours of the city and the cityscape. So I tried to bring this into my sketches for the perfume bottle by looking at things such as skyscrapers and big buildings that are seen around London. So in the end, I decided to create this as my final sketch, which was done in an architectural point of view, as the brand was always inspired by the working class people, and a stereotypical working class job would be something such as builders and bricklayers. So I chose to do it in an architectural drawing where it also looks like a skyscraper. I chose to maintain this in my poster, which I then experimented with, and then I experimented with colours and typefaces, not typefaces, but the hierarchy of the type and what I was putting where. In the end, I decided to add texture and take away some elements that were hidden, such as at the bottom left where I've covered up certain things. But overall, I think that this poster works well, and I think it uses the same design language as a cold wall, so I think it works quite effectively. I then storyboarded my motion like advertisement that I uploaded to YouTube. But throughout my development for this, I compiled lots of clips together and used a song that I then shortened down and edited accordingly. I then created a final shot for my video clip, which had the name of the fragrance along with the brand on the final shot, so that people would know what it is, because throughout this advertisement I didn't really say much, but I thought that also worked well because a lot of perfume advertisements don't say much. This is my final video, but unfortunately it didn't embed into the PDF properly or something, so because it won't play, such as my other embedded clips, but it is available on YouTube, which is linked in this PDF. I then created mock-ups in a magazine for the poster. I also took it into the real world in the mock-up outside of the magazine, and then also added it to nowness.com, which was one of the clients for this brief. My third project that I chose was my art curation project, which was in Mozilla Hubs, which was our most recent project, but we also decided to make the exhibition in VR. Throughout this brief, I worked with Caitlin Hall, who was on the course. We then researched our chosen topic, which was social classes. We then made our tutorial text, which was sort of explaining and summarising what our work was going to be about. We chose 5 artworks each and annotated each one so we could put it in context to social classes. We then used default room in Mozilla Hubs and edited it accordingly, such as adding the photos and blocking out other rooms so that it all worked coherently. The video is embedded into the PDF, but there is also a link in the PDF along with a link to the Mozilla Hubs room. These were the posters that we designed for it. The one on the right was the one that we chose to go with because it was inspired by a circus, which is what people lower down in the social classes can feel like they're in, with everybody watching them and they're seen as lower down. If I was to do this again, I would personally choose the poster on the left, as it looks more modern and also resonates more with a younger audience that's more interested in VR, but I would have added some of the elements from the other poster, such as the date and website. My final project that I chose was my art direction project, where we were told to choose a creative and a painting and recreate the painting in the chosen creative's style. Throughout this, I created mood boards and in the end chose Wes Anderson as my chosen creative, who I researched into set design, costume design, his colour, his symmetry, backgrounds, all the key factors that I would need to capture a well-done photograph. I storyboarded my photograph so that I could get a good idea of what I wanted to do. I took some practice photos, then I edited some practice photos, bringing the saturation in, bringing more colour and pop to the photo, while also removing any people from the background so that my subject was the core focus of the photograph. I then chose this outfit as it complemented the model that I was working with, along with not taking out any of their defining features, but also can stand out to a background, such as the contrast and colours they used throughout Wes Anderson's work. I thought that the orange on the jacket helped complement the yellow brick that is often seen throughout London. This was my chosen photo in the end, which I then removed the sky and replaced it, bumped up the saturation, edited it so that all the people were removed, and cropped it to the film ratio that Wes Anderson uses so that it seemed more like his work and more authentic. This was the final image, where, as you can see, I've taken some of the saturation down from the outside buildings, changed colours of things to match the jacket that my subject is wearing, and focused in primarily on her so that she is the main focus. I think that in comparison to the painting that I chose by my artist Paul Kenton, I think it works well, but it is also showing the same sort of cityscape and streets behind it. Overall, I'm really happy with this project and my outcome, but if you want a more extensive look, it is also on my blog, which I've linked throughout this entire PDF. Thank you for listening. That was my final submission for my chosen 4 projects.